Welcome to Conversations with Achievers. I'm your host, Robert White. I'm a mentor to owners, executives, and their teams, and CEO of Extraordinary People, LLC. I work with people that want to create extraordinary business performance with less stress, more joy, and more personal fulfillment. So sit back, relax, and prepare to learn from your peers as we explore what it takes in terms of attitudes, habits, and behaviors that achieve extraordinary results. Results for yourself, for your family, and your community. Conversations with Achievers. And we have a really interesting achiever to talk with today and learn from. Jim Simmons is a founder and a CEO of a company called heyLIME, which is doing some fabulous work with teams, and we'll get to know more about that a bit later. But team building is something that's important to all of us today, particularly with this prevalence of online friendships or colleagues, and how to do that. It's a bit of a mystery to me, and so I'm eager to learn more about that. And
how we can help.
And also eager to join Jim Simmons. Jim, thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Can you, you and I have chatted a little bit about an international background and some travels that we share. Give us a little brief, but like turning points in your life and how you got to this place of building software, and particularly software that serves people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't quite remember how I got into the software world, but it seemed like one of those things that I was just gonna do from the time I was pretty young. So I started out as a software engineer, worked in a number of pretty big multinational companies. And then I made the jump into the startup world. Gosh, it's got to be about 12 years ago now. And so I was the CTO of a number of different startups. Probably the most recognized one was I was head of engineering at LegalZoom for a bit. And then from there, I went and took on the job as CTO of a blockchain voting company. So we were doing the voting we were trialing it out for governments, both here in the US and internationally. We were losing money, left and right on that. We were making money doing the voting for things like the Oscars and the Emmys and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, James Beard Award, those sorts of things. So got to have a lot of fun with that. And then through a weird twist of fate, I made the jump from CTO to CEO of that company. Got to experience what it was like to actually run the business and manage it myself, right? Which I think is, as many people know, is a very different experience from having a senior technical role or something like that. But anyways, we sold that company in 2018. And then I was doing a little bit of advisory work and helping other startups when the pandemic hit. And that's when my brother and he's my co-founder. At the time, we weren't intending to found anything. We were just having a little bit of fun during lockdown. And we said, let's build Cards Against Humanity over Zoom. We're living on Zoom calls for, gosh, it felt like 10, 12 hours a day. By the time you had your work meetings and your online trainings and your virtual happy hours and connecting with friends and family and teaching the grandparents how to Zoom with the grandkid and all this stuff, man, I felt like I was living on these platforms. And so decided I'm just going to make this little game for fun. And multiple, launched it, had fun with it, thought this lockdown was going to end in 2-3 months and then we'd get back to regular life. Well, we all know that didn't happen. And the little fun project went right into a friends and family round and then an angel round of funding. And over the next couple of years has evolved into a team building and culture building platform for remote and hybrid employees. And sort of took it from there. And that's what I'm doing now.
Wow, that's quite a journey. And I'd say kind of an accelerated one, at least in recent years. Like the pace has picked up for you steadily.
Oh yes, it has.
I think it would be interesting to hear your perspective on that shift from a senior tech person to leading the effort to being a CEO. What did you notice about you, about your attitudes and maybe your habits, your behaviors, maybe some successes, maybe some things that didn't work so well? What did you notice about that journey?
Well, one of the things I think about a lot when I reflect on it is you know, responsibility, accountability, and your ability to get things done. Because on the one hand, as I made each of those progressive steps, into new roles and different positions, it really frustrated me that my personal ability to do work and get stuff done, right, to deliver, especially being a software developer, you're a bit of a maker, a creator, and my ability to do that and directly influence that diminished with every role, right? Like your time on keyboard, as we call it, to actually get things done gets less and less, and yet your responsibility and accountability for whether it goes right or wrong gets greater and greater.
Right.
And I really kind of struggled with that dichotomy for a number of years, where I was no longer the guy that was directly able to drive the success or failure of my product or my project, and yet I'm responsible for it. And so that to me was probably the biggest evolution, all the way up to my first day as the CEO of that company. I was called Everyone Counts, and for the year and a half before that, I had been CTO, actually Chief Product and Technology Officer, and practically speaking, was running almost every aspect of that company. Right? I mean, really, the only things that I wasn't responsible for were HR and a very small accounting team, and everything else was kind of within my purview. And I had a great relationship with the prior CEO in that case, but when he stepped down and said, I really think that you should take this role, in my mind, I was going to come in the next day, and it really wasn't going to be very different. I mean, I had to have a few meetings, a few more meetings with HR and accounting than I had in the past, but fundamentally, it was the same job, except now I didn't have to go justify myself to anyone. And right?
Yes.
But I'll tell you, and I think probably you understand this as well. That first day in the job was one of the most intimidating and loneliest days of my life. Because even if I had previously had 145 out of 150 people in the company working for me, and I felt like I was driving all the big choices and all the big decisions, that safety net, I guess, of having someone else be the final decision maker, someone else had the final say, no matter how crazy or optimistic I would get, and I tend to be an optimist in terms of how fast something can be done or how much we can take on or that sort of thing. There was always someone there to ask questions or push back a little bit. And that first day, when I kind of sat there realizing that no one was going to do that anymore, that it was all on me. Obviously, I had an amazing team and all that, so it certainly wasn't all me, driving success. But no one was going to look twice at the decisions. No one was going to be there to be the final arbiter. I was just such a lonely feeling for me. I've grown to love it, and I've grown to love, managing and running businesses. But as far as the transition, that was just an interesting awakening, I guess I'd say.
Wow. That just sounds so real and authentic to me. So thank you for sharing that. People that know me well know that in the last year, I've done several things to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the death of a dear friend of mine, the American singer, John Denver. And one of the things that I was reminded of in that process, I went back to Aspen for several celebrations of his life, was a song that I'd kind of forgotten about, but he has a song called Sweet Surrender. And one of the lines in the song is, lost and alone on a forgotten highway, traveled by many, remembered by few. And when I heard that, And it's a great song, actually, about letting go, about letting life be the way that it is. It's surrender. So it's in that way, it's kind of Buddhist, I guess. But I had never really heard the words in the same way. And the reason I heard them differently is my work with CEOs, because many of them, and these are, like you, smart and driven and really powerful, effective people in so many ways. But that role where you start feeling lost and alone on a forgotten highway, that's a tough role,
And it's a powerful image. But it's true. And, and it's a blast. Don't get me wrong. I love doing this. But there are days where, you look out there and think, well, what the hell do I do next?
Yes.
And I got a lot of people looking at you saying, what do we do next? Right.
Well, whether it's my ego or maybe some good counsel, you should have hired me. But this show's about you, not about me. But that's what I do. I work with primarily with owners and CEOs and who are dealing with that lost and alone on that forgotten highway kind of journey, and a lot of it, like you now. Some of it came from study and research and the kind of work that I've done with high impact experiential learning, but I learned so much from running the company. And it sounds similar to you. I had 240 people in 7 countries. And I'd say that I was the stereotype in one area, and that was spending 70–80% of my time on people issues instead of on training and research and outside connections that I needed to nurture. I spent a lot of time on people issues, which led to this work that I'm doing now. But how about you? You certainly were working with a lot of people before you became CEO, but did something change in that regard when you took on the title?
Well, I think my relationship with people changed as part of that, right? It is that expectation that you've got the answers, whether you got them or not, you have to have them. And so I think that changed the way that I worked with people. And similar to you, I've struggled with, where is the line, or what's the right breakdown of working on your team and empowering them versus really truly working on the business and the processes that run that business and the decisions you have to make and the data you're getting. And, in a perfect world, you'd say, well, I would have my team, my senior team, and I'm gonna make them the best they can be, and then they'll solve all those problems. But yet that's often not true, right? It's not that they're not capable people. It's just that where they sit, they're not empowered to see the whole picture and do that. And I think when I took over Everyone Counts, we were burning, we were a private equity backed company. We were burning almost $1 million a month. And we didn't have many millions of dollars in the bank. So there was a lot of work that needed to get done in a very short period of time to try and turn that around. And as part of taking it on, it had been a conversation with the ownership of, we're willing to write one more check. We're willing to try one more time here, but that's it. And are you prepared to step in and preside over, dramatic cost cuts and restructuring the business and really trying to turn it around over the next year? Ultimately, so they could sell, which was what they were very open that we want out. We want someone else to take it forward, but we got to get it healthy before we can do that. And that was tough, because many of the folks that I worked with who I'd worked with for some time as either as part of my team or as peers, everyone had ideas, but they were often in conflict with each other, right? Do we go try and drum up sales? Do we reduce costs? Do we cut product lines? Do we, do we get rid of the 80% of customers who are generating 20% of revenue? Do we just walk away from that? I mean, what do you do next? And of course, even 2 weeks before, I would have just sat around the table and I would have probably had the loudest voice, but I would just be there arguing my position along with everyone else. And when push came to shove, even though I got my way, or my position would kind of carry the day 8 times out of 10, now I was the guy having to listen to all the different things and say, well, I don't know which of these is going to lead to our success or our failure.
Yes.
but we got to go. We got to pick one, right? And so that has been kind of a major change, is just sort of realizing that, and again trying to balance out, is it, do I focus on the people and trust them and listen to them and go with my gut there? Do I try and dig in myself and understand the business and understand the numbers and the data? I will say that I tend to lean more towards the latter there, that when push comes to shove, I do try and dig back in and understand it and see kind of where things are going. And that certainly has served me well now on heyLIME, where it's a much smaller team, and we have to be very agile and nimble, and the ability to kind of jump from one decision to the next quickly are things I feel like have kind of been built up and learned over the course of my career here.
A lot of wisdom in what you've just shared, and thank you for that. I'm going to see if I can do a one-day module from our leadership training in 30 seconds. But this notion that leadership is ultimately always based on relationships. Relationships are driven by trust. If you've got it, you can have a good relationship. If you don't, you lose. And trust is built on a series of I'll trust you if. I'll trust you if you do what you say you're going to do. I'll trust you if you are who you say you are. The unfair one in that model, so I'm skipping 7 hours ahead here. The unfair one is I'll trust you if you are who I think you should be. And a lot of people project onto the leader, maybe it's father stuff, like things were missing in their relationship with their father. Maybe some of it is culturally driven. There's a lot of reasons for it, but it's very challenging for the leader to deal with expectations of him or her that are not fair. They're just not fair, and they don't work. That your CEO, you as the CEO, are not their dad. It's a different role,
Yep.
But a lot of wisdom in what you shared today. Jim, first of all, thank you for that. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable, and it's really appreciated. My audience are people like you and me, and they're running something. If you could let us know if there's something you need from them or that they need from you, how did they get in touch with you? And do you have a specific request of them?
Absolutely. So heyLIME.com is our business, and at heyLIME team on every social channel. The product that we're building and have built and are continuing to build really touches on what you just said, which is so much of relationships and performance is centered on trust and vulnerability and a sense of psychological safety, right, within your team. And we are specifically trying to tackle the challenge of how do you build that with a remote team who's never met each other, who can't go out to coffee, who can't have the virtual, the water cooler conversations or go have a drink after work. Where do you find those casual social interactions that form the start of a relationship, and then that relationship can turn into trust, and then that trust can kind of blossom from there. So that's what we're doing at heyLIME. I mean, we do it with a lot of intentional fun and little games and team building activities and focus sessions, a 3-minute guided meditation at the start of your meeting, that sort of thing. That's all kind of run through our software. We are launching a program Now, based on what we've heard from leaders and managers, which is, hey, that's all great, but how do I know if it's working? How do I understand if this is having any effect, or if I'm just throwing money at it, or, go hire someone to ship wine tasting kits out to everyone and maybe they had a good time, maybe not. And so we're evolving our platform quite a bit to respond to that, to do things like ask questions of the team. The app will just ask questions of the team once a week. How connected are you feeling to your coworkers? Do you feel like you have a best friend at work? How's your work energy level today? And capturing this information, capturing who's participating and not participating in the activities, and actually trying to give, managers, leaders a dashboard to say, this is how engaged your team is. This is how you're doing at fostering those moments of connection that maybe turn into something more. Anyway, so we're about to release kind of a major new update that brings those in. We're looking for companies to participate in a pilot program of that, which is basically a combination of free software and consultation services and all that over a 90-day period, just to give us some feedback and let us know kind of if it's resonating or not. And so the greatest thing I would ask of anyone listening, especially leaders, is to come and check that out and reach out to me and participate in it. And hopefully we can give folks a fair amount of value in that process as well. Share a lot of what we've learned in terms of just understanding remote and hybrid teams and how they click, and get some feedback.
Well, Jim, you're dealing with one of the biggest issues facing leaders today, in my opinion, and with a fresh approach to it, and by using technology, of course, driving the costs down to the user, and I'm guessing.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
And it is I really get it. It's a challenge to come up with those metrics to measure the so-called soft skills. It's something that I've confronted for years also. Look, I wish you every possible success and a wonderful holiday season, and deep appreciation for all that you've contributed today. I want to stay in touch with you, and I'm sure many other people do. Thank you again. Anything to wrap up here today?
Well, I love to talk to folks. So it's, please reach out, whether it's directly related to my business, or if it's your business, or if it's just anything else. You and people like you, and I think the folks listening are the types of folks that I like to have in my life and connect with. So would definitely ask folks to reach out. It's just james@heylime.com.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks so much for joining us for Conversations with Achievers. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for this weekly show, the details are at therobertwhite.com and click on podcasts. I'm looking for businessmen and women with a story to tell, stories that might benefit other owners and executives. If you got some value from this program, I'd really appreciate you sharing about it on social media, and just mentioned www.therobertwhite.com. Of course, subscribing means you won't miss a show, and rating the podcast positively will leave Robert smiling. I'm building a movement here for leaders who want to succeed in business, succeed with their families, have fun, and contribute toward making the world a better place. It's special to me that you chose to listen. I look forward to connecting again next week. Remember, reach out to me anytime with any questions or concerns at therobertwhite.com. Bye for now.